Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. So yesterday I briefly touched in the video that I had one teacher that tried to help me. So this is what this video is going to be about. So I had an English teacher, and in this class we had to write journals every day, just about a topic, and then just write about it. And it had to be a page long. Well, I like to write, so mine were way more than one page. Sometimes it was 5, sometimes it was 3. It was always over one page. There we go. And as I was dealing with everything and kind of feeling lost and not knowing what to do, I turned to these journals, and I wasn't looking for attention or anything. I was kind of just looking for an outlet, the type where I can just write and just have a safe place to go. And they got dark, and I still have all of them to this day. I have them locked up and in storage. I kept them for a reason. Just to kind of look back and reflect on that girl I used to be. And just to reflect on how far I've come. And also, so it wouldn't make me feel like I was crazy, like this shit actually happened, if that makes sense. Anyways, so I had this English teacher on and off throughout my high school. I think there was only 1 year I didn't have him. And anyways, so one journal, I was in a low point, and I wrote about how easy it would be just to disappear. That if I disappeared, no one would really give a shit, that it would be, my family would be better off without me, that they wouldn't have this like disappointed child in their life anymore. I got really dark. And anyways, so I submitted this journal entry, and a few days went by, and at the end of the class, he said, "Jess, I need to talk to you." Okay. So he's like, "So I read your last journal." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "I have to report this to the office because this is not good." And I laughed. And I apologized. I'm like, "I am so sorry for laughing. I do not mean to laugh. The thing is, nothing's going to be done of it. It's not going to matter." And he kind of looked at me and he was confused, and he's like, "Well, this is very serious. Like, I know that you're struggling and you need help. I need to report this." And I said, "Okay, but don't be disappointed when nothing comes of it." And I left it at that. So the next day, I was in his class, and he got a phone call from, like, I don't know if they have them nowadays, but they used to have like phones in the classroom from like communicating to the classrooms or from the office and whatnot. And then he answered it, spoke for a few minutes, and then hung up and said, "Jessica, you're needed in your council room, so collect your things and go." And he kind of looked at me, and I was like, "Okay." And instead of going to the counselor's room, my counselor met me in the hallway and said, "We have to go to the office." And I was like, "Okay." Big whoop-de-doo. My ass is known there. Like, I have a special chair. Like, it's basically tattooed to my ass. So we go in there, and we went into the principal's office. And I usually go into the vice principal's office, but instead it was my counselor, the principal, and the vice principal. So we go in there. and I have a seat. And so they handed me my journal entry, and they're like, well, what's going on? And I was like, basically, it's stated in there, in this journal entry, that, you know, what I was been going through, the abuse, and how alone I felt, that how every time like I tried to get help, nobody would help, that it was frustrating. And that, yes, I wrote that maybe it would be easier just to disappear. And I remember the principal coming around her desk. So she stood up from her chair, she came around and she sat on the desk on the corner. And she's just like, well, why would you write these things? I'm like, because it was how I was feeling and how it was happening. Like, this was real. And that went over her head. It went, and she says, well, why are you making up these lies? And I remember sitting back in the chair and laughing. And I was like, I don't understand what you're saying. And I turned to my counselor and the vice principal, and I said, you guys know I've come and talked to you both. And then I looked at the principal and I said, and you've probably heard of it. And there has been a few times that I've come to talk to you. Like, why is nobody believing me? And like, they just looked at me. And like, the principal was getting very annoyed. She's like, well, you need to stop looking for attention. This is attention-seeking behavior. And I was like, why should I stop when it's the truth? And the vice principal, because there was 2 vice principals and then a principal of the school, I would usually deal with, actually it was like a 50-50, so I would, half the time I would deal with the male vice principal or the female vice principal, depending on the situation. And so the one that was in the meeting was the male. And then my counselor was also male, and then the principal. And I just remember like sitting there looking out at all of them. I'm just like, why is nobody believing me? Like, this is like, this shit's happening in the hallway. And I was getting kind of like frustrated. I was like, you guys can look at it on the video cameras, and it's just like, it's here. You've seen it. I'm sure you guys have seen it. I'm sure you guys have talked about it in your staff meetings. Like, I know everybody's making me out to be this crazy person and looking for attention, but I'm not. I just want help. I just want it to stop. And like, they were all looking at me like I was crazy. And like, I was getting upset. Like, I was like crying. I'm like, this is so pointless. Like, I was just getting so frustrated. And the principal's just like, you just need to stop. Take a breath. Stop being so dramatic. Like, just stop. Catch your breath. So I took a few deep breaths because I'm like, I'm about to punch somebody. But anyways. And I just kept saying, like, why aren't you believing me? Like, this is happening. And they're like, well, you're kind of asking for it. And I've heard about this, I've heard this before. Like, one of the female vice principal actually called me a slut when I was wearing swim pants and a hoodie. She said I was a slut, and then I was asking for it. And my life. And I was like, well, what do you mean I'm asking for it? Like, I was like, I changed my life. Like, I changed the way I dressed, the way that I act. I had long hair, and at this point, I chopped it off. I was like, so, they had nothing to grab onto. Like, I made myself feel and look disgusting. I did everything in my power to be unnoticeable. Like, like I wouldn't stick out. Like I just blended in with everybody. I did everything in my power to be unseen. I sat at the back of the classrooms. I barely spoke. I avoided everything possible. Like if I saw this group in the hallway, I would take the long ass way around. I would walk down to the basement, the lower level of the school. Like I would zigzag through these hallways to dodge everybody possible. I removed myself from all the situations that they were around, involved in. I lost out on things because they were there and involved. And I took myself out of those situations. I wasn't allowed to go on school camping trips because they were there, and I just wasn't allowed to go because of my bad behavior, or it would cause conflict. Like I just removed myself from all the possible situations. And I said, but this shit just kept on happening. Like I said in 2 videos ago, they would just, no, it was last video. They would just walk into the classroom and hang out with people in the classroom with their friends, and the teachers did not give a fuck. They would find reasons to find me. And I just remember sitting in this office going like, I have done everything humanly possible and more to avoid everything. And I'm like, and you guys aren't doing anything to help me. You think I'm the problem, that I'm looking for attention. But this isn't me looking for attention. This is me done, exhausted, frustrated, sad, just done. And they all just looked at me like I was crazy, like that I was just making this all up in my head. They're like, oh, well, that wouldn't happen. Like, stop it. Like, why are you looking for attention? I'm like, I'm not. Like, I was like screaming at the top of my lungs, trying to just stop all of this. And they said, well, you just need to stop writing this stuff, or else you're going to be in more trouble. I'm like, what more trouble could I be in? Like, honestly, what more could you do to me that hasn't been done? And they're like, well, you just need to stop this behavior. It's very disappointing. And we put in a phone call to your parents, and they feel the same way. So you just need to stop writing these things, and that would be the end of it. And I just remember just feeling defeated. And I just looked at them. I'm like, why are you protecting them and not me? I know it's 6 against 1 here, but it feels like the whole school is against me. Like it's 1 against like 700 people. And I'm like, I know how dramatic and crazy this is what I said to them. But that's how it feels like, because nobody wants to listen to my voice. Like, why isn't my voice important? And they just said, well, if you stopped making up lies and being dramatic and looking for it and, asking for it, then, maybe you would be more believable. But you just keep on telling lies, so nobody's going to believe you. And I remember standing up, grabbing my backpack, and just walking out. Not saying anything else, just walking out. And I remember my counselor coming after me, making sure that I went back to class, and I walked into my English classroom. And I remember my teacher, the surprise on his face was just like, what are you doing back here? And he said that out loud. And I shrugged him like, I told you. And I went to go sit back in my seat. And like he was making eye contact with me when I sat down. And he went out and talked to my counselor, because my counselor was there in the hallway. He came back about 10 minutes later and sat at his desk. He looked frustrated himself. So when the bell rang and he said, just stay behind for a second. And I said, I'm sorry, Mr. So-and-so. What did I miss in class? Like, I'll get caught up. Like, it's not a big deal. English was like, I was very high in my English class. I was the top of the class. So it was very easy for me to catch up. And he said, that's not, he's like, I don't really give a shit about you. This is what he said. He's like, I don't really give a shit about that. He said, continue writing. I said, wait, what? What? I looked at him, I was like this. And he said, continue writing. He's like, if it's helping you, continue writing. He's like, I wish there was something I can do. He says, I have been stopped in my tracks that I can't do anything anymore. But if this helps you, keep writing. And he says, I believe you. And this was near my end of my school year, at my school time in high school. But it was just a little glimpse of like hope for me. And every time one of the 6 tried to come in his classroom when I was there, he kicked them out. He would not let them in the classroom. And he protected me. When I was in that classroom, he made sure it was a safe environment for me. He made sure my voice was heard through paper, or he didn't give up on me. He was the one teacher in the school that did not give up on me. He was the only one in that school that didn't give up on me, that didn't think I was crazy. And it was just a little glimpse of hope. And yes, it did come to the end of my time in high school, but it just reminded me that there was a little bit of hope, that I wasn't crazy, even though, like, I know I keep saying this in videos, and I think I'm gonna have to do a deep dive into this, but I felt crazy for a very long time in that school and afterwards. So I have never been so like in that state of mind where you think you're crazy. So I think I will do a video on that, because that's a whole other video. I know I keep saying this, like I have a whole lot of videos coming, like, I mean, Jesus Lord. But yeah, I'm still working on that that video. I really want it to word it right, and I want it to come across in a way that really hits home for certain people. So I have to, like, I've already typed it out, and I usually don't type out these videos, like you guys can see, like this is just from memory and just from like my soul. And the reason why I typed out this video that I'm working on is just, I just wanted a baseline of like supporting myself, like, you know, just kind of giving myself a baseline and a place where I know I'm just trying to look for the right words for this, where I know where this is gonna go, in the direction that, not the vision that I have, but just like in this kind of straight to the point, where these videos I kind of go off. So, but yeah, I'm working on that, and that's gonna come in a bit, hopefully within the next week or so. But yeah, there's that. And I really hope that, you know, that nobody goes through this. Because man, it was not a good experience. Like, it was not healthy from like a human to go through. And not to sound dramatic or not, but I'm really surprised I got out alive, if that makes sense. Like, I'm surprised and proud of myself. But anyways, again, that's a whole other video. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna leave it there. I love you guys. Never give up. Always keep fighting. Remember, you are enough and you are very much loved. Until the next video, I love you guys.